Hello and welcome to another episode of the Uncomplicated English Podcast. Today we are going to learn about Guy Fawkes Night. The 5th of November is a very important date in the United Kingdom. On this day, the people commemorate the failure of the Gunpowder Plot. But what was the Gunpowder Plot? Well, the Gunpowder Plot was basically an assassination attempt. A group of English Catholics wanted to kill King James I. The plan was to blow up the Houses of Parliament on November the 5th, 1605. The Houses of Parliament are made up of lots of buildings. One of these buildings is a place where a group of people called the Commons meet. The Commons are a group that is elected by the people of Britain to represent them. They go to the House of Commons where they discuss important issues and laws. I'm sure some of you have seen videos of British politicians shouting at each other in a small room with two stands of seats opposite each other. So, the conspirators, this is what we call people who are involved in the planning of an assassination, wanted to kill the king and the parliament. But why? Britain at the time was very Protestant. This angered the Catholics in the country. Anyone at the time who wanted to be a part of the government or the church had to swear allegiance to the Queen over the Pope. As you can imagine, this was a big problem for many Catholics who see the Pope as the head of their church and not the Queen. If someone refused to swear allegiance to the Queen, they could be given a heavy fine, and if they refused many times, they could even be put in jail and executed. So, the group of conspirators decided that they were going to kill all the members of Parliament and the king. On November the 5th, there was going to be a very important event where the king and members of the House of Commons would be in attendance. When I say they would be in attendance, this is another way of saying that they would be there. The conspirators planned to put barrels of gunpowder under the room where the meeting was going to be and set it alight. If they were successful, the gunpowder would kill not just the king, but also many of the members of Parliament. Many of the members of the Parliament at the time were Protestants that were against Catholics. The conspirators also planned to steal the king's daughter and place her on the throne as a Catholic queen. She would then be able to change the laws and get rid of the fines and oaths that the Catholics had to follow. Every night for a few weeks, the conspirators put barrels of gunpowder in a cellar under the room where the meeting would take place. The group decided that a man called Guy Fawkes would be the man to light the fuse and blow up the gunpowder. This is where the name Guy Fawkes Night comes from. However, before the attack, Lord Monteagle received an anonymous letter. An anonymous letter is a letter that arrives with no name. The person who receives it doesn't know who sent it to them. The letter begged Lord Monteagle to not go to the meeting, and in the letter it said, "I say, they shall receive a terrible blow, this Parliament, and yet they shall not see who hurt them." Lord Monteagle himself was a Catholic, and many suspected that he had been involved in previous attempts to kill the king. So, desperate to prove himself innocent to the Protestants, he took the letter to the king's palace. On November the 1st, the letter was shown to the king. King James had been the victim of many previous assassination attempts, and his father was actually blown up by gunpowder. After reading the letter, he believed that there was a plan to blow up the House of Lords. On November the 4th, the Houses of Parliament were searched. Every room was searched, and the guards found a room filled with firewood. In the room, they also found a man. The guards asked him what the firewood was for and why he was there. This man was in fact Guy Fawkes, and hidden under the firewood were 34 barrels of gunpowder that the guards hadn't seen. Guy Fawkes told the guards that his name was John Johnson, and that the firewood belonged to his master. The guards were suspicious, but left the room and went back to report to one of their superiors. Later that evening, guards searched the building again and found Guy Fawkes again. They searched him and found fuses and matches in his pockets. Also, when they looked under the firewood, they found the 34 barrels of gunpowder. Quickly, the guards arrested Guy Fawkes and took him to the Tower of London. The Tower of London is famous for being a prison where many people over the years have been tortured by terrible torture machines. The other conspirators quickly heard rumors that someone had been arrested under the Houses of Parliament with barrels of gunpowder. So they escaped from London and into the countryside. They collected weapons and tried to build up an army. However, nobody wanted to be a part of the fight that they were planning, and most refused to help them. In the end, only 6 of them stayed together and decided to stay and fight. They waited for the king's men to arrive and got ready to fight. On November the 8th, the group of 6 were found and the fighting began. They fought against 200 of the king's men. 2 of them, Catesby and Percy, were shot and died quickly, and eventually the remaining 4 couldn't fight on anymore and were arrested. Whilst all this was going on, Guy Fawkes was being tortured until finally, after 3 days, he gave the guards the names of the other conspirators. They were caught and taken to trial at Westminster Hall, where they were condemned for high treason. They were sentenced to be dragged through the streets to the old palace yard, where they were to be hung, drawn, and quartered. I won't go into details about their execution because it is quite gruesome and bloody. After the event, the king ordered that bonfires were to be lit every 5th of November to celebrate his escape from death and the failure of the plot. This is a tradition that is still very strong and continues to this day. In almost every town and village in the UK, on the 5th of November, people light bonfires and burn effigies of Guy Fawkes. An effigy is something that is often made up of wood that is meant to look like someone. So, people make things out of wood and old clothes that look like Guy Fawkes and throw them onto the bonfires. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, I'd like to remind you that the full transcript for this episode can be found for free on my website at uncomplicatedenglish.com, where I also give one-to-one conversational lessons. Thank you very much for listening. See you soon.